No way that he just said this. During an appearance on Shannon Sharp's podcast, running back James Cook expressed his strong opinions about the Bills losing to the Chiefs for his fourth straight year. My name is Maeve Miller, and I'm a member of the Bills Digest team, so please subscribe to the Bills Digest YouTube channel if you haven't already. So starting off, I just want to talk about some of these losses that James Cook was bringing up. So obviously, as Bills fans, we know the heartbreak that comes with playing the Chiefs, especially in the playoffs. In 2020, we lost in the AFC Championship 38-24. In 2021, we lost in the divisional round 42-36, which was the famous 13 seconds trauma game that went into overtime. In 2023, they lost again in the divisional round 27-24, and that was on the missed Bass field goal. And then in 2024, in the AFC Championship, they lost 32-29. And the Bills, it's very heartbreaking to watch because they do beat the Chiefs in the regular season. They were the only loss for the Chiefs besides the Eagles in the Super Bowl. So, and the Bills, it's not like they're playing badly. I thought in this last game, the Bills played fine. They obviously could have been better. They didn't win. But the Bills fans just love to blame people, and it seems like James Cook was kind of getting into that as well. But I just want to talk about his stats because he has been made a big impact on the Bills' playoffs. In 2022, when he was drafted, he contributed 42 rushing yards to the playoffs and 1 touchdown. And these numbers have just gone up each year. In 2023, he had 140 rushing yards. And then finally this year in 2024, he had 272 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns with 64 receiving yards, which is very impressive. He does have these strong opinions, but he can back it up by the way he plays. And this is his second straight Pro Bowl appearance. But it is interesting because he has taken to the media in a lot of different ways and has been very outspoken about stuff like this. And it's important to note that, from these losses, the Bills fans love to blame. It's just kind of what we do. So, this tweet, after the game, it said, any Bills fan blaming solely the refs and not just Joe Brady for not giving James Cook a single snap on that last drive is part of the problem. And definitely with the refs, it has been a big narrative in the last couple seasons, especially playing the Chiefs. We know that the Chiefs, there is some inconsistencies with that calling, even though the NFL came out and said that is absolutely untrue. There is just a little bit of controversy, and especially in the last game, there was a few controversial plays, like that 4th down play where people thought that Allen clearly had it, but there's video proof that kind of shows it. But yeah, if the Bills, blaming the refs is just kind of how it goes for all across fan bases, but the Bills like to really dig in on other coaches. Offensive coordinator Joe Brady has been getting it bad. He's been getting some criticism for being too conservative on his play calls. But before it was Joe Brady, it was the other offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey, or head coach Sean McDermott gets that hate a lot too. So obviously it is a team effort and a staff effort, but for some reason the Bills fans just love to pinpoint specific coaches and players and just kind of go crazy on that. So Joe Brady definitely was receiving some of that. And I do agree with some of it. I did think that there was a little bit of hesitancy on that. There was a couple times in the Ravens where the Ravens were able to come back by a couple interesting play calls, like the tush push being unsuccessful and then running it again and again. Just didn't really make sense to me. And the Bills also did have an opportunity to score in the Chiefs game and get that lead. And for the last offensive play, and the Bills were not able to convert on that. So it's hard to blame the refs when we did have a chance to come up and play. And it just kind of felt like a weak play call, and it kind of felt like we were defeated already going into that last play. So obviously I'm not just going to blame Joe Brady, but there were a little bit of issues with that in my opinion. Okay, and then next I want to talk about Cook's specific comments on this. So he, on this podcast, Sharp asked Cook, what do you think the Bills need to do to get over that hump that is Patrick Mahomes and how to beat him? And in response, James Cook said, we just got to be aggressive. When you come into games like that and your back is against the wall, you got to win. You know you're playing 15. You know it's going to be tough. And I definitely agree with this. I think this is an aggressive team, and they're such a strong offensive team that you just got to come out there guns a-blazing. And we've seen the aggressiveness kind of fluctuate, and it seems like the Bills don't get that aggressiveness until they're down, and then the fourth quarter it's holy wow, they're playing so well, and you're where was this the first few quarters? So I think when the Bills get off to a great start, they go down the field and score, it's just such a easier game for them. So I just think that's important that the offensive coordinators need to start looking into more. But like as James Cook said, he said, I think that he needs to get more aggressive off the rip, which I completely agree with. I don't love that he's going on like social media and saying these things, because it does just feel like after his tweets and stuff like that, that he is just kind of being a little negative towards the Bills in general. But I don't necessarily disagree with his comments, because there has been some issues with that. And in order to beat the Chiefs, like, we're going to have to keep on playing them year after year. Something clearly has to change. So I just thought that was interesting comments from Cook. And then lastly, I want to talk about Cook on his future with the Bills, because this was also brought up during the podcast. Once again, he brought up his contract on public media, and he said, feed me the big bucks. I want to get what I deserve, what I asked for. He didn't bring up the specific $15 million value, which he has been talking about. As I talked about in previous videos, he went on Instagram and pinned his own comment saying $15 million a year. He responded to a tweet that said, like, if you don't think James Cook deserves $15 million, you're crazy. So he definitely has just been very outspoken about it, unfollowing Bill's accounts and changing his profile pictures. So I think that's why this podcast does upset me a little bit, because it just feels like he's like harping on the Bills because he's unhappy with what's been going on. I know he respects the Bills organization, and he did say, like, I quote, like, I don't want to be a cancer. I don't want all this drama. Like, I'm not trying to do this for drama. But just the way that like his actions has been online have just been a little interesting and just creating drama. After the Bills have had like a really good season, obviously a tough ending. I thought it was interesting that they did bring up his playing time, which is something that I had thought was an important factor in whether or not he should be getting this extension or not. So James Cook does, in 2024, he only played in 48% of snaps. And when you compare that to other players like Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley, who are playing in 80% or 74% of snaps, offensive snaps, it does just seem like a little low. And sometimes I do think that that was his choice. Like, I see him raise his hand a lot, and like he does make big plays and he sits out, but he did say, specifically, I said, I need to be on the field every down. Keep me on the field and great things will happen. And he definitely has that confidence going into it. And I do agree, because if he's a Pro Bowl, two-time Pro Bowler, why is he sitting on the bench so much? And I'm glad that he thinks that way, because if the Bills were to give him this extension, he would need to be on the field more and making a big impact. And I think it's hard for the Bills because they have such a diversified like group of players they can go to. They can go to so many different wide receivers, tight ends, and even running backs as receivers like Ty Johnson. So I think it's hard to get into every snap, and I'm not saying that he needs to be playing in 80% of snaps, but I think getting that number to at least 50%, if not more, is key, and I think that's the only way that he'd be able to get this extension. So I think I'm glad he addressed this, and I just hope that Brandon Beane, that there'll be some changes being made, and we'll get some information on what Cook's status is, because I just don't love that he's just going on social media and just like saying all these things. So hopefully we'll get some answers soon. And I like I said before, I'd love for him to stay on the team. I think he's a great player. His stats back it up. And I think even though there is this drama, he is a good person and a good player. But I do think that these comments are taking away from some of his greatness. And it's definitely making some people in the social media world a little mad, because they're like, why would you think that you could pay $15 million, especially when the Bills, it doesn't seem like they can afford it. So that'll be really interesting to watch. And we'll keep monitoring it and seeing what happens. Thank you for watching.